Having a proper structure in Node.js REST API is very important. So, so we have done all the routing in the previous episodes. In this episode, we are going to see how to properly structure our Node.js REST API. So, as our code base is getting bigger and bigger, it is very difficult to maintain if we put all our code in few files. So it is very important to structure our application so that it can be maintainable and easily unit tested. So as you can see here, so the starting point of our application is index.js, and then we have routes folder where we have defined multiple route handlers. From there, we can define controller, service, repository, all these folders. So basically, the controller handles all the control flow. For example, if any route needs to get data from different sources, the controller will handle all that flow for you, and the service class will maintain all the business logic, and the repository will handle all the database related stuff. So so it doesn't have to be this way. I would recommend so for my now Node.js REST APIs, I would usually have this structure. So I mean, depending on your need, it can change. You can change depending on your need. So it doesn't have to be this way. So this is a good start, or this is a basic structure that you can have for your REST API application. So let's go ahead and implement this one. So far we have index.html and routes. So let's create let's create the folders. So let's create controller folder first. Now I'm going to create a file called task.controller.js. You can name the file anything you want, but this is a recommended file name. I mean, this is the recommended pattern in which you can actually put dot format, so that by looking at the file you will know whether it is a controller or service or repository. So controller class is done. Let's create another controller class. Since we have 3 route handlers, so we are going to create 3 controllers. Task detail controller, so we're not going to define any methods as of now. We are going to define those methods later. For now, we are going to create a class and then export that class from this file. Since we are exporting with the new, so we are creating an object as we are exporting it. So as soon as we import this one in another file, you can directly use it. You don't have to create any object. So let's create task history controller as well. Yeah, let's change that to history. Now controller classes are done. So let's go ahead and create service folder. So as in the controller, in the side under service also we are going to create three services: task service, task detail service, and task history service. Let's copy this and create another file called task detail service.js. Paste it here, add detail there. Copy this, create task history service.js. Change that to history. So now done with the services, let's go ahead and create repository. Copy this and create another two repository files, task history and task detail. Sometimes it can be longer, the files can be longer based on the names, but that's okay. That's okay as long as you understand what this file does by looking at the name. It's okay to have longer names, so don't worry about the longer names. Copy this and paste that in the detail and change that to detail. So we have defined controller, service and repository classes, and now go to the routes folder and go to the to-dos route handler and let's import. Since it's a to-dos will have all the tasks routes, so we are going to import task controller here. Now we have imported task controller, and so since we do not have any methods under controller, let's go ahead and define the methods in the controller. Before that, let's import in all the route handlers. Now detail is completed. Let's import in the history as well. Since we are creating object as we exporting from that file, you can name anything. Right now we are naming task history controller, task detail control, but you can name anything. So now let's create some methods. Since we do not have any backend or repository or database plugged in, I'm just going to return empty array. Now create task will just take a task object. Don't worry, we are going to plug in database in the next episodes. For now, let's play with these empty arrays and empty objects. So delete task will take the ID as a parameter and it will delete that particular task. And we are going to return the same ID. and update task also takes ID as a parameter and returns the ID. And copy these methods from repository and put it in the task service. Now import the repository class in this service and let's use that repository in the methods. Copies the repository, and all we need to do is we just need to use those repository methods instead of creating own methods here. So all we are doing is we have defined methods in the repository, and we imported that repository in the service. In the service methods, we are using that repository, so that when we plug in database in the next episodes, we can test the end-to-end flow. So let's change the methods appropriately so that, okay, now we have done with the service. Let's go ahead and do the same in the controller. Import the service class in the controller and call that service in the appropriate methods. Since the method names are same, let's change the task repository to task service in the methods. Copy these and replace. Yep. Now controller class is also done. Let's import this. We already imported this controller class in the to-dos route handler, and we are going to use controller whenever we are sending the response back. We just need to use this controller to call appropriate methods. So for example, get tasks will actually call get tasks from the controller, and in turn controller get tasks method will call service get tasks, and the service get tasks will call the repository get tasks. So when we plug in database in the repository, we usually get the data from the database. As of now, we are just playing with the sample data or empty arrays or empty objects, but later we are going to plug in database in the future episodes. So if you are already familiar with all these, you can just skip to that particular episode where we plug in the database and we get the data from the MongoDB. Now for now we are going to test with this empty data. So we have defined the task detail repository, and we have created the same methods in the detail service and detail repository, and the detail controller also we are going to, we define those methods where we are getting the detail and deleting that particular ID or updating the particular task. Now let's use we have imported detail controller already in the route handler, and let's use those methods. For now, we are just passing sample data as a parameter. Later in the episodes, we usually take that 1, 2, 3 IDs from the route itself. In the same way, history, service, history repository, and the history control also has those methods defined, and let's use those methods in the route handler. And the history list task will list all the history tasks, and archive task will remove that specific task in the history. Now we have defined the whole flow. Let's test it out. So the get call is working fine in the browser. It is returning the empty array. And let's go ahead and test some other calls in the Postman. So, and let's test some detailed calls in the Postman. So you remember we are passing 1, 2, 3 as a sample parameter in the methods. So, and we are returning the same ID, and we are getting the same. And those calls are working fine, and the detail get call also working fine. It is returning empty array. Let's test some history data, history routes. Okay, history call is also working fine. I think we need to pass some username there as a path variable. Let's pass it. Yep, history call also working fine. We are returning empty array, and delete call is also working fine. That's good. So basically the entire flow is working fine. So all the flow, controller, service, repository, all the flow is working fine now. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and